sources. Our efforts with respect to freedom of information began a decade or so ago with the media program and what used to be the Constitutional and Legal Policy Institute that we had based in Budapest, COLPI, leading the effort to adopt freedom of information laws then in the countries of Europe or in the former Soviet bloc countries particularly, and to secure implementation of those laws. And then with the establishment of the Justice Initiative about 7 years ago to replace COLPI, the effort to promote the adoption of freedom of information laws and to promote compliance with those laws became a global effort of OSI. We have also engaged in efforts to support the adoption of freedom of information laws and to promote compliance through the grant-giving efforts of OSI. And many independent organizations worldwide have been engaged in this effort. During that period, we have been by far the leading private supporter or the leading supporter of efforts to adopt freedom of information laws. It has been a remarkably successful effort. If you look at the map over here, it shows you the extent to which freedom of information laws have been adopted on a global basis. Initially, the effort was prevailing after it had been adopted in the United States. It was prevailing in Europe and in Latin America. More recently, it has succeeded to a significant extent in different parts of Asia and in a number of countries of Africa, including India, for example, which adopted a freedom of information law, or right to information law, as it's called in India, in 2005. And in 2007, China did not adopt a freedom of information law. They adopted a freedom of information regulation with the idea that they would see how that operated before they went all the way to adoption of a law. But even before 2007, a number of the provincial governments in China, led, I believe, by Guangzhou, had adopted freedom of information laws. So when a country as closed as China gets to the point where it feels that it should provide some greater access to information, I think that signifies that we have achieved quite a great deal. I should say that I wouldn't assume that the achievements are secure. In recent days and weeks, there have been a couple of cases in particular that have aroused a greater degree of controversy over freedom of information laws than we had known previously. One such case involves the United States, and another involves the United Kingdom. In the United States, the controversy has been stirred over the release of information with respect to torture practiced by the Bush administration in its global war on terror, and most recently has resulted in the decision by President Obama to resist a court ruling that required disclosure of photographs showing the consequences of torture. And you'll hear later in the day from an attorney for the ACLU, Amrit Singh, who has been a leader in that litigation. I think that there is now a significant chance that legislation will be adopted which prohibits the release of photographs or at least allows the executive to withhold the release of photographs in Freedom of Information cases. The other case that has aroused perhaps even more controversy is the case in the United Kingdom, which led to the disclosure of the expenses claimed by members of Parliament. And a consequence of that set of disclosures is that the government of Prime Minister Gordon Brown may not survive very long. Brown may be replaced by the Labour Party, and that is to an extent a fallout of the scandal over the release of the expenses of members of Parliament that was brought about through Freedom of Information Act litigation. So I think that cases that are so explosive as the torture case and the parliamentary expense case could result in something of a backlash against the adoption of freedom of information laws and against the implementation of freedom of information laws. So this isn't all something that goes in our direction without a difficulty or two. We have to deal with these difficulties. But I think that the effort to expand access to information is one of the most important efforts that the Open Society Institute has been engaged in over this past decade or so. I expect that it will continue to be in the forefront of our efforts for a long time to come. And I'm delighted that so many of you are engaged in this effort in your own countries. And as an institution, we are committed to doing everything we can to support your efforts. Thank you very much.